I'd been looking forward to this family reunion for months. After all these years, it was supposed to be the moment I could finally reconnect with everyone. As I pulled into the driveway of my parents' house, I could already hear the laughter and chatter from inside. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to prove I wasn't just the black sheep of the family. But when I walked through the front door, everything changed. "Where should I sleep?" I asked, looking around for an empty room. My mother looked at me with a forced smile. "Oh, sweetie, we're full up. You'll have to sleep in the garage." My heart sank. The garage? Seriously? I glanced at my father, who avoided my gaze, clearly uncomfortable. Naomi, my younger sister, shot me a smug look from the couch, her eyes gleaming with superiority. I wanted to scream, but I held it in. This was typical. I'd always been the afterthought in this family, overlooked and unimportant. I walked silently to the garage, humiliated. As I reached for the door, I pulled out my phone and dialed Danny's number. "This is ridiculous," I muttered under my breath. Danny answered immediately. "What happened?" "I'll tell you when I get to the garage." I hung up, my fingers trembling with a mix of hurt and anger. I stood in the cold garage, staring at the empty space. The smell of old boxes and unused furniture filled the air. I felt like I was suffocating in this forgotten corner of my own family's world. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed Danny again. "I can't believe this," I said, my voice shaky. "I really don't know how much longer I can take being treated like this." Danny, ever the supportive friend, was quiet for a moment. "Tasha, you've had enough. You've been humiliated, but you're not powerless. It's time to make them regret this." I swallowed, hesitant. "What do you mean?" "You have power. You know things and you can use them. If you want to get back at them, it's time to expose the lies." I felt a rush of adrenaline. Could I really do this? Could I make them feel the weight of their actions? "I'll do it," I whispered. "I'm going to make them regret this." As I sat in the cold garage, memories flooded my mind. I thought about how my parents had always favored Naomi. She was the golden child. Everything she did was applauded, while I was left in the shadows. Naomi was the one who got the praise, the attention, and the love. I remembered being told I'd never be good enough. How my father's compliments to Naomi were always more effusive than anything he said to me. "You're so talented," he'd say to her, while I was praised for being practical. "And Naomi, she never let me forget it. You'll never be as good as me," she'd tell me, smirking. The sting of those words still lingered, even after all these years. I clenched my fists. I was done being treated like this. I wasn't going to just sit back anymore. I had to take control. I sat on the edge of the garage, my mind racing. What could I do? How could I turn this situation around? I knew I couldn't let my parents get away with treating me this way. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone and called Danny. She picked up right away. "You're right," I said, pacing around the garage. "I can't just let this slide. I need to make them pay for treating me like I'm invisible." "Good," Danny said. "You've got this, Tasha. But you've got to do it in a way that hits them where it hurts." "I know," I replied. "I'm thinking about Naomi. She's got something to hide, something that could ruin her perfect little image." Danny paused. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure." The next day, I confronted Naomi. The family reunion was in full swing, and Naomi was basking in the attention as usual. I approached her while she was laughing with some distant relatives. "You think you're perfect, don't you?" I asked, my voice low. Naomi glanced at me, her smile faltering. "What are you talking about?" she replied, brushing me off. I leaned in closer. "I know about your little secret." Naomi's eyes widened. "What secret?" You've been hiding it for years, I said, my voice steady. You're not as perfect as you pretend to be, and I'm about to make sure everyone knows the truth. Naomi's expression shifted. She tried to laugh it off, but there was fear in her eyes now. You wouldn't. No one would believe you. I smirked. I think they will. The family was gathered in the living room, chatting and catching up. I walked in, purposefully acting aloof, dropping hints about a family secret I was about to reveal. Naomi's face paled as she caught my eye. I could feel the tension building in the room. Everyone was on edge. Do you want to know the truth about Naomi? I asked, loud enough for the entire family to hear. What are you talking about? My father asked, his voice tense. I'm talking about the secret she's been hiding for years, I said, feeling the weight of the moment. Naomi looked like she was going to faint. She shot me a pleading look, but I wasn't backing down. The room grew quiet, and everyone's eyes turned to Naomi, waiting for her to defend herself. But Naomi was trapped. She couldn't cover up the truth anymore. I don't know what she's talking about, Naomi said, her voice shaking. But it was too late. The seed of doubt had been planted. My parents, who had always chosen Naomi over me, were now questioning her. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Aunt Marla, a distant relative who had always been on my side. You're doing the right thing, she wrote. You have more power than you realize. I took a deep breath and looked at Naomi. This was only the beginning. Later that night, Aunt Marla and I met privately. She knew the details of Naomi's secret relationship, something that could unravel the perfect image Naomi had spent years building. Naomi's been hiding a relationship, Aunt Marla told me. She thinks no one knows, but I've got the proof. And I think it's time someone exposed her for the liar she really is. I felt a rush of satisfaction. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The tables were turning. I'll do it, I said. I'm going to make sure the whole family knows the truth. The reunion was in full swing, but there was an undercurrent of tension that I could feel every time I entered a room. Naomi was no longer the confident golden child. I could see her trying to hold it together, but the cracks were starting to show. Every time she talked about her perfect life, I couldn't help but smile inside. She had no idea what was coming. I dropped more hints to the family, making sure they knew I was holding on to something big. The more I did it, the more paranoid Naomi became. I watched as her calm facade started to crumble. It was finally time. I decided to confront Naomi in front of the whole family. We need to talk, I said, my voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Naomi looked terrified, but she tried to keep her composure. You've lied to everyone for years, I said, locking eyes with her. And I'm about to tell them the truth. Her face paled. The entire room was silent. What truth? My mother asked, her voice full of suspicion. I smiled. It's time to expose Naomi's secret. Naomi opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. I'm not done yet. The room was thick with tension. I stood at the front of the room, eyes locked on Naomi as she shifted nervously in her seat. I could see her trying to come up with an excuse, but there was no getting out of this. The truth was about to come to light. Everyone, I began, you've heard Naomi talk about her perfect life, her perfect career, her perfect relationship. But there's one thing she's been hiding, something she's been trying to cover up. Naomi's breath caught, and I saw her hand tremble as she reached for her drink. The family was hanging on to my every word now. I looked at her one last time, and then I dropped the bomb. Naomi was in a relationship with someone she didn't want anyone to know about. Someone who wasn't good for her, someone who was dangerous for her reputation. The room went dead silent. Naomi's face flushed with fury, but she couldn't argue. I've kept quiet about this for too long, I said, letting the words sink in. But now, The whole family is going to know the truth. The chaos erupted the moment I finished speaking. Naomi jumped to her feet, trying to defend herself, but it was too late. "Liar!" she shouted, her voice full of panic. "You don't know anything." But the damage had been done. My parents, who had always been her staunch defenders, now looked at her with doubt. Her perfect world was crumbling before her eyes. "Why didn't you tell us, Naomi?" my father asked, his voice softer than usual, but filled with disappointment. Naomi was shaking with rage, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. "It's not what you think. I didn't want anyone to know. It was a mistake." But my mother was already shaking her head. "A mistake? You kept it from us for years. Why should we believe you now?" I stood back, watching as Naomi tried to defend herself, but I could see the frustration building inside her. She was losing her grip on everything. After the explosive confrontation, things grew eerily quiet. Naomi stormed out of the room, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. My parents were left speechless, their faces red with embarrassment. I could feel the guilt creeping in, but I shook it off. They had brought this on themselves by always choosing Naomi over me. I sat back in my seat, unsure of what to do next. I'd exposed the truth, but now what? Was this really enough to fix everything? I couldn't help but wonder if this was the end of it, or if something even bigger was about to happen. Later that evening, Aunt Marla and I found a quiet corner to talk. She'd been watching the fallout, and I knew she had advice for me. "You've done well, Tasha," she said, her voice low but reassuring. "You've taken control of the situation, but don't let it consume you. This isn't just about Naomi. It's about your family, and you need to figure out how to move forward." I nodded, but I still felt conflicted. I had exposed the truth, but I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. "Aunt Marla, do you think this is enough?" I asked. "Or is there more I need to do?" She smiled softly. "It's never just about one moment. It's about showing them who you really are, not who they expect you to be. You've already taken the first step." The next day, Naomi came to find me. Her face was flushed with anger, but I could see a tinge of fear in her eyes. "I want to talk to you," she said through gritted teeth. I looked at her and sighed. "What's there to talk about, Naomi? You've been hiding things from the family for years. The truth is out now." She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You think you've won, don't you? But I'll make you regret this. I'll make you wish you never said anything." I stared at her coldly. "If you want to make amends, then do it. But I'm not backing down." She was quiet for a moment, before she finally spoke. "Fine. If you help me fix my reputation, I'll owe you a huge favor. Anything you want." I paused. This was exactly the kind of deal I'd been hoping for. But was it worth it? I spent hours thinking about Naomi's offer. It was tempting. She was practically begging me to help her repair her image. But I knew better than to trust her. She was only offering a favor because she had no other choice. I sent a text to Danny, asking for advice. What should I do? I asked her. Should I take Naomi's offer? Danny replied almost immediately. Take it, but don't give her too much. You've got the upper hand now. Use it wisely. I thought about it for a while longer. Danny was right. I could use Naomi's desperation to my advantage. I'll do it, I texted Naomi. But don't expect me to just let it go. You'll owe me more than you think. It was time to confront the family again. I'd been planning this for days, and now I was ready. I called for a family meeting. Everyone gathered in the living room, uncertain of what to expect. I'm not going to let this slide, I began. We've all been living in a lie for years, and it's time we confronted it. My parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but I didn't back down. I'm not going to let you all continue to turn a blind eye to Naomi's mistakes. We need to stop pretending everything is perfect. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone was waiting for what would come next. Naomi was visibly frustrated, but she knew she had to comply with my demands. She had no choice. I watched as she struggled to maintain her perfect image. But deep down, I knew she was desperate. She had no idea how far I was willing to go to make sure she paid for the years of lies. I could see her resentment growing, but she had no choice but to play along. Naomi tried to spin the story in her favor, but I wasn't buying it. I could see right through her manipulative tactics. I had all the evidence I needed to expose her once and for all. I collected everything, preparing for the final showdown. It was time to finish what I'd started. I called Naomi one last time. The air between us was thick with tension. "I've had enough of your lies," I said, my voice steady. "If you don't come clean and face the consequences, I'll expose everything to the family." Naomi was silent for a long moment before she finally agreed to meet with me. At the final family gathering, I stood before them all, ready to drop the bombshell. "I've got all the proof," I said, looking at Naomi. "And I'm not going to let you forget what you've done." The room was stunned. Naomi's face drained of color. She knew it was over. My parents were shocked. They couldn't deny the truth anymore. "I've been treated like nothing for years," I said, my voice firm. "But now, you all see who I really am. I'm done being the afterthought." My parents apologized, but I knew they couldn't undo the damage. As the family tried to recover, I realized that the real work was just beginning. There was no going back to the way things were. But I was stronger now. I had control. And I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. I left the family reunion, ready to move on with my life. There was no point in staying in a toxic environment. I knew that, with or without them, I was going to make my own way. I agreed to meet with my parents, but only on my terms. We began to rebuild our relationship, but it was different now. I had the power. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with myself.